Welcome to the ADE Alternate Assessment Unit's Action Plan presentation. This presentation is being recorded and will be posted to the Alternate Assessment section of the District Test Coordinator website. This presentation is for LEAs who exceeded the 1% cap and provides helpful information for LEAs in writing action plans. Suggested strategies for meeting the 1% cap as detailed in ESSA are included at the end of this presentation. The 1% number came from data provided to the US DOE in 2001 when participation in alternate assessment was not tied to accountability. This was the most accurate way to determine a reasonable number of students who qualified for alternate assessment. Since the change in the regulation, states have been working with LEAs and have found that many students who did not qualify were participating in alternate assessments. As we go through this webinar, keep in mind that under the regulation, only the state is required to be under 1%. LEAs may exceed 1% participation in alternate assessment, but will be monitored by the state if they do. This presentation will explain the monitoring process. Thank you for all of your work so far. We dropped from 1.1% to 1.0%. Keep up your efforts as we move forward with accurate identification of eligible students. This week, alternate assessment test coordinators will receive notifications that either the LEA exceeded 1% or that the LEA did not exceed 1%. The LEAs at or under 1% are not monitored and have no further actions needed. The LEAs that did exceed 1% will be given instructions on providing more student information. After the ADE Alternate Assessment Unit reviews the student data, the LEA will be placed into a tier of support. The Alternate Assessment Test Coordinator will be notified of the tier and given instructions for submitting an action plan. Once the action plan is approved, the LEA will carry out the actions. The application allows LEAs to upload progress, but this step is not required at this time. Notifications for exceeding the 1% cap will be emailed to the current Alternate Assessment Test Coordinator. The first notification will be emailed the week of November 5th and will include the LEA percentages for each content area and instructions for submitting student information. The second notification will be emailed the week of December 3rd and will include the tier and disproportionality. We will look at this in more detail soon. The action plan process is conducted within the exception to the 1% cap application in ADE Connect. If you do not see the application when you log into ADE Connect under the LEA name, ask your entity administrator to assign it. Detailed instructions on accessing and using the application will be sent in the notification email. Alternate Assessment Test Coordinators will provide additional information for selected students. Although your entire list of participating students is displayed in the exception to the 1% cap application, selected students will have a hyperlink. Use the sources of evidence checked in the participation decision document page of the eligibility criteria form to identify what will need to be submitted. Find that information in the evaluation and IEP and add to the narrative boxes. Please do not copy and paste the entire evaluation or IEP. Student information must be submitted by November 30th. LEAs are defaulted into tiers based on their percentages. LEAs between 1 and 1.4% are in Tier 1. LEAs between 1.5 and 1.9% are in Tier 2. LEAs at or above 2% are in Tier 3. Tier exceptions could be made for small LEAs, specialized schools, or other based on student information. Adjustments may also be made if student information is incomplete. More information on what is required for each tier will be presented later in this webinar. One point of clarification is that LEAs seem to think that they are in trouble for exceeding the 1% participation for alternate assessment. Your plans are not corrective actions. These are your chance to identify what you are doing well at your LEA and what you might need to improve. They are also an opportunity to document special circumstances that affect the LEA. We know that we live in a diverse state, and these plans show the unique aspects of your LEA. Also, the regulations require that each LEA that exceeds 1% submit a justification. For your convenience, the action plan template will be emailed as a Word document and posted to the website as a PDF. Let's look at the details of the action plan. Each action plan will have 6 components this year. These components are outlined on the District Test Coordinator page on the Alternate Assessment website under Webinars. Action plans will include the current percentages for your LEA, your goal percentage, justification for exceeding the 1% cap, your action plan, addressing disproportionality, and any support you will be requesting from the ADE Alternate Assessment Unit in order to reach your goal percentage. The current percentage is listed first in the action plan. This number is given to LEAs who exceed the 1% cap in the first notification letter. Percentages are given for ELA, mathematics, and science separately. An LEA may not be over 1% in all subject areas, but is considered to have exceeded the 1% cap if it is over in at least one area. The calculation for exceeding the 1% cap is based on numbers from the previous administration because the student selector application will still be open when the action plans are due. ADE takes the number of students tested on MSAA divided by the total number of students tested in grades 3 through 8 and 11. We use the same calculation for the students participating in science assessments. This is a good opportunity to look at your goal percentage from last year and compare with where you are with where you thought you would be. The goal percentage is listed second on the action plan. For LEAs who are far above 1%, reaching 1% may not be a realistic goal in 1 year. For small LEAs, one student might put you over 1%, and your goal would be the same as your current percentage. For specialized schools, 1% may not accurately reflect the student population. However, for most LEAs, the goal percentage will be no larger than 1%. The justification is the third component in the action plan. This is the LEA's opportunity to explain special circumstances that affect participation rates. Special circumstances are typically small LEAs or specialized schools. Justification may also include any information an LEA would like to communicate to the ADE Alternate Assessment Unit. To maintain student confidentiality, do not use numbers less than 10 or less SSIDs in this section. Under the federal regulation, it is a requirement to post LEA justifications. This is the only section of the action plan that will be posted. The action plan is the fourth component. This is where LEAs detail all steps that will be taken to reach the goal. These steps will need to be measurable actions that directly address your unique issues relating to exceeding the 1% cap and can be completed within the annual timeline. The strategies portion of this presentation may help LEAs identify some actions that an LEA may want to take this year. Action plans address the requirements of your tier. LEAs in Tier 1 must include that your LEA will provide training on participation requirements for alternate assessments. A webinar on eligibility has been recorded and posted on the Alternate Assessment website and can be used to meet this requirement. LEAs in Tier 2 must include that your LEA will provide training on participation requirements and that your LEA policies will be evaluated. Last year, some LEAs identified the need to have a second review of eligibility documentation or included the entire IEP team with psychologists, general education teachers, and parents in training. LEAs in Tier 3 must include that your LEA will provide training on participation requirements, evaluating LEA policies, and working with ADE to address additional training, understanding the purpose of assessment, analyzing student characteristics, and so forth. As you can see, providing training on eligibility is always required. Other actions are determined by the unique needs of your LEA. This year, a section for disproportionality is added in order to fulfill the requirements of the regulation. If your LEA is identified as having disproportionality, you will be notified in the second email. To address disproportionality, part of your action plan will include the information provided on which areas were identified, as well as assurance that eligibility will be reviewed for each of the students in those categories. If your LEA has no disproportionality according to the second notification, simply indicate NA in this section. ADE support requested is the last component in the action plan. Requested support could include trainings, review of presentations, or materials. The ADE Alternate Assessment Unit wants to work with LEAs to ensure they have everything needed to address the 1% cap requirement. Keep in mind that although all support requests will be considered, not all requests may be feasible. Due to the request made last year, the webinar series was developed. Currently, 3 webinars are posted on the website: Instructional Supports and Resources, Eligibility, and Accommodations for Alternate Assessment. Action plans will be submitted in the exception to the 1% cap application in ADE Connect. The application will look similar to the previous waivers submitted in the exception to the 1% cap applications, in which LEA submitted waivers and additional student information. This application will be open year-round for reference. Action plans are due December 21st. Similar to the approvals for exceeding the 1% cap, action plans will be approved by the Alternate Assessment Unit. If the action plan is not approved, the Alternate Assessment Test Coordinator will be notified via email and feedback will be provided. Alternate Assessment Test Coordinators may check the status of their action plan by logging into the 1% cap application. Throughout the year, carry out the actions on your action plan. This year, progress does not need to be uploaded. However, if you choose, you can upload progress toward your actions in the exception to the 1% cap application and let us know of all the great things you are doing for your students. NCEO provided suggestions to state education agencies, which can also be used by LEAs. The remainder of this presentation will identify these strategies. One strategy is to gather data on current participation rates at the school and IEP team level. Ask questions such as, are some schools or IEP teams overqualifying students? Look carefully at your data and think about including this in the action plan. Similarly, look at the characteristics of students who take alternate assessments. Compare individual student characteristics with those common to students who took the assessment in other buildings, in the state, and in the entire consortium. The ADE Alternate Assessment Unit has presented student characteristics and are willing to share this data with the LEAs. The Learner Characteristics Inventory is collected before administration and included in your NSAA results file. Furthermore, review the eligibility criteria. Ask if there is enough evidence to support that the student qualifies in all 3 eligibility categories. Does the LEA need support or clarification on eligibility? Are IEP teams using the criteria with fidelity? Many teachers and district representatives use evidence from the not to be used in determining eligibility list that is included in our document. Provide professional development for teachers and IEP teams. Topics may include eligibility criteria, instructional support, curriculum resources, and having difficult conversations. Inform parents by providing information sessions. This gives parents a way to actively participate in IEP meetings, especially for conversations around instruction and eligibility for alternate assessment. This also helps parents understand why a student may not qualify for alternate assessment. Most common questions have been addressed in this presentation. Further questions may be typed into the chat box. I'll pause a moment to allow time for questions to be submitted. There is a question asking for copies of slides. Yes, both the presentation and the slides will be posted to the alternate assessment website. Thank you for viewing this presentation. We hope it has been helpful in navigating the new ESSA requirements. This webinar will be posted to the alternate assessment website for future reference.